great story, but before I get into it, I want to put a little perspective on it. I live in an old building in East Berlin in an area called Prenzlauer Berg. There's an older gentleman who lives in my building named Hubertus. I found out that about a month ago he celebrated his 97th birthday, and he's lived in Berlin his whole life. It got me thinking, what must he have seen in his lifetime? He's born into this booming imperial capital of Germany. They think they're going to be capital of Europe and the world. He watches those hopes die in the 11th hour of the First World War. Friends and family come home wounded, or worse, they don't come home at all. Then, the Weimar Republic, a democracy, the Roaring 20s, things are good, and the stock market crashed. The Nazis come to power, the Second World War. Can't imagine what he must have seen during this period. Then, foreign armies come in and occupy. Suddenly, he's a communist. He can't have a free election. He can't make decisions for himself. And soon a wall comes down the middle of his hometown, and he can't walk to the other side of it. Now, it's easy for us to see the fall of the wall as this kind of inevitable step in the march of history, but it was not so obvious to people living here in the 80s. He throws a party for the 40th birthday of East Germany to take place right out here in front of the Place de la République, and he figures he'll march everybody outside. They'll remember what a happy socialist state they live in and forget about this whole modernization, free election thing. And just in case that isn't enough, he thinks he'll get a really good keynote speaker. See, Honecker is hated here in East Germany, even though he wins all the elections by like 99%. I don't know how that works. But he's really not well liked. So he thinks, who do the East Germans like? He looks in his little Rolodex. Hasselhoff's busy. Gorbachev. Now, Honecker and Gorby don't like each other. They never have. And Gorby's not very well liked in Russia. He's talking about all these new ideas in this communist stronghold. But he's beloved here in East Germany. So Honecker arranged for Gorbachev to come be the keynote speaker. The day comes for the party. Everybody's out here. The cavalcade moves in, and hundreds of people show up, not shouting Honecker, but shouting, "Gorby, save us! Gorby, Gorby!" Gorby's never gotten a reaction like this. He's used to being like the old boring professor who comes in and he's like, modernize. Now suddenly people are like, yeah! So he's starting to get into this. Now the speeches start. Honecker goes on first. He gives boring, self-congratulatory speech about the might of the East German state, and he makes the following quote: "I see this wall standing for another 100 years." He's only off by like 99 and a half, not too bad. Now Gorbachev comes on, and people are just like, ah! Probably not with the lighters, but I mean, they're freaking out. Suddenly he's like Hasselhoff, and he's walking in there, and he's like, whoa, yeah. And he gives a very different kind of speech, talking about moving forward, modernizing, reforming, and he makes the following quote: "Those who resist the forces of history will be crushed by those forces." What does he say? Remember when we were at the Air Force headquarters and we saw the picture of the protesters that were shot in the back by Russian tanks? He's saying, you've tried to rise up against your government before East Germany, and we stopped you. Well, this is a new Mother Russia. And if you try it again, we're not. He was giving them the go-ahead for the protest movement. And this is where things really start to build momentum. The following Monday, there was a planned legal protest for Leipzig. Honecker bans the protest, sets a curfew, and goes on the air saying he's had extra blood plasma sent to the hospitals, and if you go out in the streets tonight, I cannot guarantee your safety. This was not long after the Tiananmen Square massacre in China. The people of Leipzig, they know what the danger is, but they also know what's at stake, which is why 70,000 Leipzig men and women kiss their babies goodnight, make changes to their wills, and take into the city center of Leipzig, defying their government, defying their leaders. Now Honecker, he's called in the army. The police can't handle it anymore. And the army, the tanks roll in, the people in the army meet in the city center, and now the generals have a decision to make. But Honecker figured wrong. In 1953, when those protesters were shot by the Luftwaffe, they were shot by foreign troops. These East German soldiers, they weren't going to shoot their own men, their own brothers. Not a shot is fired. Soldiers are literally throwing down. A journalist, a British guy, he starts to get a little brave. He raises his hand. He says, Mr. Shabosky, what are you going to do about this protest movement starting in Leipzig? Shabosky isn't really prepared for this, but he thinks he'll improvise. That's Shabosky. He thinks maybe it's on the memo. He pulls it out. Protest movement. Doesn't see anything. But he just reads from the top. Travel restrictions to the west will be lifted. That's all he said. A hush falls over the crowd. Everyone's like, what did he just say? Good for himself. It's like, what did I just say? No one knows what to make of this. Another journalist cautiously raises their hand. They're like, Mr. Shabosky, does this include the border between East and West Berlin? Are you talking about the Berlin Wall? Shabosky's like, oh my God, I don't know. You know? But he looks down. By the way, this is all on film rule. They have it in archive here in Berlin. This is all true, all on tape. So he looks down and he's like, East and West Berlin, East and West Berlin, East and West Berlin. He decides to improvise again. And he looks up and he says, well, yes, I would assume this would also include like handing out cash. See, some of the East Berliners have never seen a banana, and now they're like drinking champagne in bars, on little lines with the trombones, the East German cars lining the streets, everybody's partying. The movie playing in the Western Megaplex in West Berlin this night, by the way, Dirty Dancing. So a lot of Berliners, when they hear hungry eyes, they get this like swelling of national solidarity. It's a massive party, okay? Monday morning comes around. You got all these East Berliners waking up on West Berlin couches with their new West Berlin friends and their new West Berlin hangovers. What do you think they do? They go back home to their jobs, their apartments, their families. Most of them didn't really want to leave East Berlin. They just wanted the choice, the freedom to dress how they wanted to dress, cut their hair how they wanted, walk to the other side of their hometown, to have a free election, which they did, voted in a reform government, and within a year, Germany had reunified. Berlin had reunified. But it's been a hard process. That was 18 years ago. It's been an expensive process. It's taken the German economy with it. And there's still a lot of differences between